remember, stands for Continuing Care Retirement Community. So now remember, you have retirement communities in Emporia, Kansas that are standalone apartments or villas that offer a senior living only service package that largely relates to home maintenance. Okay, that's different than a CCRC retirement community, which is what you're sitting in right now here at Emporia Presbyterian Manor. This is the type of community, when we talk about putting a roof over your head, this is one roof that you're putting over your head that says, if I need assisted living, I've got access to that. If I need memory care, I've got access to that. If I need nursing care, I've got access to that. If I need short-term rehab, physical therapy, speech therapy, occupational therapy, I've got access to that. When we're thinking about putting a roof over your head, is there a roof that ensures a successful aging plan until the end of your days? Well, here at Presbyterian Manor, we believe that a CCRC does that for you. Because gosh darn, we hope you never need it, right? We hope you never need nursing care. But did you know 70% of the people in this room will? Think about it. If you turn to the person to your left and you turn to the person at your right, one of those people is going to need care. But remember that somebody put their eyes on you, too. So we have to be, if we agree that successful aging looks like successful planning, then we have to stare these types of facts in the face and say 70%, I have a 70% chance of needing some sort of care as I age. I mean, think about it, guys. If you were going to get in your car today to drive here and the weatherman said you had a 70% chance of rain, how many of you would have grabbed an umbrella? Probably all of you. Because in your mind you say, 70% chance, oops, it's probably gonna rain, I'm gonna need this. Well, in the same way, if we know that 70% of seniors are going to need access to care before they pass, wouldn't you want to put a roof over your head that gives you that plan? Well, let's pretend that you do. Let's pretend that you've decided a CCRC is the best path for you. Then now you have to come to terms with what kind of contract you might be signing. When you go and you meet with any type of sales counselor, if they're not willing to give you a contract, you should ask them why, and if they can't give you an answer, I would get up and walk out of the room. There should not be anything to hide. So when you go shopping and you get contracts, you're really going to find that in this area and really anywhere in the world, there are two basic contract styles. You either have rental contracts or you have what's called an entrance fee contract. Now, these two contracts differ greatly. Now, here's why. You might be living in the same apartment, getting the same package of services, but the financial impact on your bottom line is very different. Here's why. If you go into a CCRC agreement with an organization and you sign a rental contract, you are agreeing to a monthly exchange of goods and services for a monthly fee. So you give the monthly fee, you get the services, just an even exchange like that. In senior living, it's unlike some of your typical, like just an apartment style setting where you might sign a year lease or you might sign a 6-month lease, right? In senior living, guess what the commitment term is? Usually between 30 to 60 days. So imagine for a moment, if you will, being the operator of a business like this, where there's really no necessary commitment in the contract from all of the people living in your community, and every 30 to 60 days, everybody could say, you know what, I'm out of here. That's kind of a high-risk contract. That's kind of a high-risk operation, right? So what does the operator have to do in order to absorb the risk of that type of a contract? Well, they have to build a cushion into that rental cost. So here's what I mean. Here's what it costs to operate the building, and here's what those who enter into a rental contract have to pay. Because you're essentially paying extra money for the privilege of being able to opt out anytime you want with very little financial complication. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay, now let's kind of compare that to the entrance fee contract. In the entrance fee contract, what you do is you put down a large lump sum. Now, a lot of times this large lump sum can be likened to a home value. So you might be putting in $50,000 or up to $100,000 down, okay? Now, you're going to expect most of what you deposit, even though we call it entrance fee, it's really more like a deposit because most of that's going to be refundable to you or to your estate someday when you leave the community. But while it's invested in the community, what happens to the operator operating that building? Do they have the same amount of risk as they do with the person in the rental contract? No, because you've invested. And you say, hey, here's $100,000. I'm invested in this place. So the operator can then say, oh, okay, well, here's what it costs to operate it, and we're only going to charge you this much. Because you've absorbed our risk in this deposit. So in a nutshell, when you're looking at how much it's going to cost you each month for this contract, a rental contract will, in Emporia, usually cost you anywhere from $300 to $1,000 more for the same goods and services that you could get with an entrance fee contract. Okay? So if you're interested in keeping a little more cash in your pocket on a month-to-month basis, an entrance fee could be an equitable option for you by making that deposit, pulling your costs down, and then knowing that most of what you deposited is coming back to your estate anyway. Let me make sense of it this way. I'm going to use my M&Ms here to tell you a story. This is, we're going to call this guy Mr. Brown. We're going to call this guy Mr. Green. Now, these M&Ms represent their money. Isn't that great? They've got a whole bank account filled up to the top. But Mr. Brown is going to select a rental contract. And Mr. Brown is really excited to go into this rental contract because he says, oh boy, I don't have any big deposits or anything. I just get to move in and start paying rent. So this scoop is going to represent 1 year's worth of expenses in an independent living apartment, let's say, of Mr. Brown's choosing. So let's pull, let's say, 5 years worth of money out of his bank account to represent his rental expenses. Okay? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, over here we have Mr. Green. And Mr. Green says, I don't want to pay that much money every month. I'm going to make a large deposit or an entrance fee, and I'm going to invest that money up front into that community. Here's the difference. Even though that's a really big scoop of money out of his investments, it doesn't get poured out. It's set to the side. And because of that investment, he now gets to exchange for a much smaller scoop. So now he's getting to save money month to month, and he's also going to live there for 5 years. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, a portion of this deposit, of course, is going to be retained by the community. This is part of what funds them remodeling and fixing up the apartment for the next person. But the remainder of that balance, whoops, even that part, goes back to Mr. Green. So, these are, if you were to travel the world, or at least in North America, and you were to go and shop with every single CCRC option known to man, and you were to gather all of their contracts up, and you said, okay, I'm going to sort all of these contracts. Even though every contract has its own little details and different ways that they spend things, at the end of the day, you're still going to have 2 piles. You're either in a rental contract or you're in an entrance fee contract. That's the bare nuts and bolts of it. So then that drives us to the next question. How do you know which one is the best fit for you? Well, for example, one of the things I might be asking if I were you is, what kind of contract is available at this establishment? Most places, really in Kansas, but even in Emporia, have only one option available to you. So when you go to live with them, you either have to do a rental or you have to do an entrance fee. Emporia Presbyterian Manor is different in that they are one of the only options in this market that actually gives you a choice. So when you come in, you could choose the same apartment, but you could flex in whichever agreement style suits you.